Alright, this is Sean Sarcona, and today we're playing a lot of great hits. Mainly, we're going to be playing how to render that stuff out with passes by me. So the big thing here is isolation. Okay, now as a child we were told that we shouldn't be isolated, but as artists we know we like to be. So we're just going to pass that on to our project here. Okay, so we want to isolate all of these objects, and just for kind of speed sake, I've left everything as a gray. Obviously, you want your texture stuff, you want to light stuff. I'm going to add one light just to give us a little bit of something, because we will want to utilize shadows and whatever else. So move my light. The lighting is no different than the other stuff. I'm just going to use the default light setup that we've talked about before. If you go beyond what we've talked about, there may be some other stuff that you have to tackle, but you're a seasoned football player, and I don't think you have any problem doing that. So I've typed in nothing right here because my numlock was off. I'm just going to type in 2500. I'll go to mental ray, use the light shape, and set that to 1. Also, let's make it visible. There we go. Now you'll see that the playback or the rendering of this is obviously going to take some time because we got so much stuff going on. We got the light hitting this, we got some shadows happening, we got the fluid effect, we got the particles, we got some birds flying over here. That last one was a joke. And 2500 is still not enough, so obviously we need to crank that up a bit. Now this is going a bit slow, so of course I want to maximize my speed at this point just so this goes quicker, so the next stages of this go a lot quicker. So I'm just going to hit escape. I'm going to go to my options test resolution and put this at 50%. I'm going to go to my render settings, verify that my quality is low, which it is. I can knock my light quality down a bit, and that should be good. Let's go to my light, make it 7500. Feel free to check your text messages while this is rendering. It's a perfect time to do that. Alright, still kind of light or dark. One of those. 12500. Scrap the section. And again, it's going slow because of, you know, the scene is freaking huge. There we go. So it's definitely a bit brighter. Maybe even more. 25,000. Alright, that took an incredibly long amount of time. 4 minutes and 51 seconds. Holy cow. Good thing I paused that one. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to isolate it. I want to isolate my trail. I want to isolate my building. I want to isolate all the particles inside it. I want to isolate, that's it. Anything else I might have, I want to isolate that also. So I'm going to go to render layers. That's where the magic is going to happen tonight. I'm going to click on each item I want to isolate, and I'm going to make a new layer. This far right button makes a new layer and assigns it. So if I click on that, there it is. Back to my master layer, click on the particles inside, make another new layer. Go there they are. Go to my master layer, grab the geometry, make another new layer. Okay, so there we go. 3 layers. Everything's isolated. Let's rename this building. Rename this debris. Name this asteroid. We may also want to isolate the asteroid itself, which is there. The thing inside here that caused all this mayhem. Right there, you can kind of see that there. Okay, so we'll isolate that guy also. And I'm just going to put him on the building layer. Okay, that way I have those 2 pieces of geometry together. That makes things a little bit easier. Okay, so now the problem is that on like my debris layer, I can see the entire debris Whereas in my master layer, I really can't see all my debris. And you're going to say, well, you can just put it behind those things. And that's fine, I can put it behind it, but what if I want to spin my camera around? And sometimes it's in front and sometimes it's behind. So what I need to do is create what's called a hold out. Hold out. That's what your mom does when she has lots of candy. She won't give you any candy. She's holding out on you. So I'm going to go to my debris or debris. I'm going to add my building, my plane, and my sphere. I click the wrong button. I want to right click on debris and say add selected objects. So there they are. Okay. Now I don't want these to render, I want these to be a holdout. So I'm going to go to lighting and shading, I'm going to assign a favorite material, and I'm going to say surface shader. Nope, I'm going to say Lambert. Yep, there we go. And under the matte opacity, I'm going to say make this a black hole. So now if I were to render this, what we should get is just the explosion. Wow, look at that, it's gorgeous. With little holes in it where the debris is. Now we didn't show anything because our area light is not part of any of these layers. Okay, so I can just add it. So I know it's going to be on the building layer, it's going to be on the debris layer, it's going to be on the asteroid layer. So now we render it again. And it's taking a long time, which means it's doing something. There it is. So now you can see there's the debris. Okay, now this is what it looks like when there's stuff being cut out. Now if I go to my alpha channel, which is this little radioactive one, you'll see that that is the only thing that's visible. That's the only thing that's showing because that's what's visible. I'm going to go a little bit further up where we have a bigger explosion. Let's say that. And then I'll render it again. And again, we should just see where this debris, smoke, fire thing is, and everything else should be kind of cut out. Obviously, this is going to take some time because instead of rendering out one frame, you have to render out that same frame, but you got to do it for each layer. And sometimes it's going to take some time for those layers to happen. All right, so there it is. And you'll see it doesn't look like it's a whole lot of stuff, but once we have the alpha channel on there, this will really pop out a lot more than previously, you know, we're kind of looking at. So that layer is pretty much done. Now, just as a side note, let's say we had some reflections happening here. Click the particles. Under render stats, right here, we have to make sure we turn on visible and reflections and visible and refractions on. Now, because I'm on a render layer like that, visible and refractions on turns orange because that only applies to this layer. If I go back to my master layer, you'll see they're still off. Okay, those are called layer overrides. All right. So if I did have something that was reflective, like my ground, I would not want to use a holdout in that case. What I'd want to use is this use background. And with the use background, I can say, you know, here's my reflectivity. And then what would happen is, all right, so now, if you look very close, you can see we have a reflection of that stuff. I can actually crank this up. And we can see the reflection inside there. Okay, and if we go to the alpha channel, you'll see that we get the building is actually reflecting in here, and so is that. So we may not want that to happen, so no big deal. I can click on the building, and under the same render stats that we had for the other one, I can turn things off, like cast shadows, receive shadows, primary visibility, you know, that kind of stuff. Actually, there's a holdout one right here. See, that's a new one. Visible and reflections. Visible and refractions, you can turn those off, and then when it renders, it won't render that other stuff there. Okay, just because of the time, I'm not going to allow it to do that. All right, so just again, it's kind of like up to you of how you want to set that up. Set that to be a holdout. All right, so now for the asteroid, I'm going to do a very similar thing. So I'm going to go back to my master layer. I'm going to click on the building, the plane, and the sphere. I'm going to go back to my asteroid layer. I'm going to right-click and add those in there. And then again, I'm going to assign that surface shader, or sorry, that Lambert 2, that's what it was, to this. And then again, I can make sure it says holdout. And there we go. Now you'll see if I go back to my building that holdout is still checked. Okay, it's not turning orange. So if I only want that to happen on the debris layer, what I need to do is right click on it and say create layer override, and then check it. Same thing with the asteroid layer, right click, create layer override, and then check it. Okay, so you just have to play with these settings until you get what you want. So I want this to be a holdout, so it should be held out. Okay, so that should be good. And if we did a test render, all right, so it looks like we are good. I kind of stopped it because it was taking a while. So there it is, being held out. Perfect. Okay, so that's what the important thing of this whole assignment is just to kind of play with each one of these settings to get something out of it. So what I'm going to do now, just to kind of test this, is I'm just going to leave my settings kind of low, like that. But I want to render out a single frame. So I'm going to go to a frame that is showing a lot of my stuff. So I'm going to go to my master layer so I can see it. So maybe something like this, I can go to and render that out. Okay, so if I do a batch render now, yes, what it's going to do is render this single frame, frame 22, then I can bring this into Nuke or Photoshop or After Effects or whatever, and I can play with that. Now, because this is going to be a video that we turn in, I don't want to just, do it in Photoshop because then it kind of loses all my settings. If I do it in After Effects or Nuke, then we can see those settings happen on the video as well pretty quickly. All right, so I'm just going to let this go. And I'll be back in a few hours, depending on how long this frame takes. And then we can take a look and see what we would do inside Nuke. All right, it finally finished. It's only been a week and 10 days. So I'm going to go into Nuke, and I'm going to click down in this area here. I'm going to hit R for read, and I'm going to go find my file. So there was the bullet shatter right there. I'm going to go into my building, grab the other bullet shatter, click R again, my debris, find the other bullet shattering right there. So if I click on any one of these and I hit the 1, you see how it shows each one of those pieces. So now what I want to do is merge all of these together, okay? So merge is exactly that exact word, which is merge. So I hit M for merge, and I get an A and a B, okay? Now these arrows can be connected, or they can be disconnected, okay? So thinking about this, A is going to be your top, and then B is going to be your bottom. Okay, so if you do it wrong, don't be afraid to adjust things. Okay, so now these are connected, but you'll see that the viewer down here is connected to that guy. So if I click on this and hit 1, now he's connected there. And now you'll see that I have these two items together. Success. Now if I connected these backwards, you'll see that I don't get that result. So that's how you kind of know. You just kind of like trial and error. There you go. Okay, so now that's that part. Now I want to put this stuff on top of it. So I'm going to add another merge. And because I had that one selected when I created it, you'll see that it added it right here. And I'll add that into that mix. All right, so I have my smoke trail or my comet trail right here. All right, so then I'm going to go down here. And this one is my building, so those two are connected together. And then my bullet shatter is right here, which is the debris, and that's connected right there into that. Okay, so like I said, it's pretty easy. Just kind of connect these things, and if they don't work out, you can just connect them differently. Okay, so I can pull these off and try something else and see if I get different results. There we go. All right. So now here's where the cool stuff comes in, is that let's say I wanted this, which is my comet trail, to glow. I can click on this, hit the tab key, and type in glow. And now I'm adding a glow just to this. Okay. And at my width channel I can set to my alpha, and it'll kind of reduce where the glow is happening. And again, you can kind of look at it and say, do you want it? Do you not want it? I can pull the brightness up, pull the size of it up. I can pull the tolerance up as to what's actually glowing. And I can also type numbers in. So if I wanted this to really, glow, I could do that. All right. If I want to see what it looks like without the glow, I can click on the word glow and just hit D. D turns it off, D turns it on. So you can see before and after what it looks like. And I think that looks pretty nice. There we go. And here's my building. If I needed to change my color of my building, I'm having trouble navigating. I have this here. I still have my reflection on. So that's why I'm seeing that still. But it doesn't matter. It's still there. I would just take it out. And my other one, just jump back to Maya. And that's the kind of the point of doing this, is that we're setting it up so we can test it out. Okay, so that's why we want to do this step of going into Nuke or Photoshop or After Effects and test it out and see what's working, what's not. So here's my building shatter here, and if I go to this, I hold down hit the tab key and add another glow. Then I can add a second glow on top of this area. Now again, it might not glow a crazy amount because I don't really see a whole lot of it, but look at that, it looks kind of neat. Okay. Now there is a timeline, but it's not animated, so if I hit play, you'll see that nothing happens. Okay? But I just kind of set this up, I test it, I see what's working, what's not working. If I get this stuff here, I can just go back to Maya like I did and set it so I don't have the reflection, because obviously I wouldn't want it. Or if one of these layers didn't look correct, like I accidentally rendered this one but it had the smoke, I would just jump back to Maya and correct that layer, and then there we go. Okay? Now what I do is I save this, and I'll put it in my D drive here, 50, mark, I'm going to save it there. And we'll call this Shatter Nuke. And then what I can do is then go back into Maya and then reset up all my render settings. So crank this up to 2, put that back to 1. I can go to my scene, and if I wanted to add any passes, like if I wanted to add, let's say, ambient occlusion or depth, I could add both of those. Now, some of these are not going to work the same way you would expect them to work because some things like particles don't really have a depth channel, so that really wouldn't work. And the same thing with ambient occlusion. We really wouldn't get any ambient occlusion off the particles. We would get it on the pieces of geometry. So just be aware of that kind of stuff. You can render them and just try it and see, but again, it's just going to take longer. Back to our common tab, let's give this a name. So I'm going to call this Shatter Building. I'm going to put an underscore, and then I'm going to right click and say insert layer name. So now each rendering will be named after the layer itself, which is kind of cool. Name.number.extension, all the standard stuff from here on out. 200 for my frames, whichever camera you're using, and that should be good. Okay, so now you would just batch render it just like normal. And then when you come back into Nuke, all you have to do is delete this out, and then go back to your read, and then you can read in that piece again. I went to the wrong area. 25. And that one was my asteroid. Yep. And then I just connect it in. And now any changes that have happened to it will obviously trickle down into this final little bit of a chain. Okay? So once you're done with this, or once you rendered it out, you can bring it back in. Then you hit the play button, and then everything should update, and you can adjust from there. Okay? Then what you can do is go ahead and write it out. So now it's red to get it in, and then you write to get it out. Where the file is, I click the folder, and then I specify I want these to go into, let's say, a new folder called rendered from Nuke. I will call this building shatter dot pound 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 dot tiff. Okay, so you need the building shatter, which is the name, the dot pound pound pound, which is the number, and then dot tiff, which is the file extension. So we hit save. We would hit render, and then we would get a new sequence that we could bring into After Effects that would have all the changes we've done inside here. And then we would render that out and make it into a movie. Okay. Now it might seem complicated just watching it, but once you've done it a few times, and it may take a couple times just to kind of get used to where the stuff is inside Nuke, but they did label things pretty good. Whereas, you know, we're kind of bringing stuff in here, we're looking at it here, and are editing stuff there. Okay. So that's it. So that's how you're going to render your stuff out.